Good morning. So in case you missed it this week, lots been going on in Washington. And while I said last week that I was thinking about becoming a Republican, not so much anymore. See, yesterday, Mike Pence, the vice president, did something that showed his true colors, how he really feels about women. And he kind of became a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Because on Wednesday, he was Dr. Jekyll. He was, he went to a conference on empowering women and basically told women how much the administration cares about them and wants to work for them. And yesterday, the Mr. Hyde came out. He must have drank in the juice, the Kool-Aid. And he broke a tie in the Senate that is now going to officially defund Planned Parenthood. Simply because my Planned Parenthood in my town doesn't perform abortions. But basically what Mike Pence did yesterday was he made it possible now that women, poor women especially, will not be able to get cancer screenings, affordable cancer screenings, birth control, and testing for sexually transmitted diseases. All because Planned Parenthood gives women the option of the A word. They counsel women that if they are pregnant and they don't want to be, their legal Supreme Court decision, Roe v. Wade right, is to terminate their pregnancy. Just for mentioning the word abortion means you no longer get federal funding from this administration, from our government. So Mike Pence showed his true colors. He showed that he believes women should be barefoot and pregnant in their kitchens, making dinner for their husbands. Just like many right-wing, religious, fanatical Republicans vote from their Bible and from their preacher rather than by the law of the land. And Mike Pence did that yesterday, proving that if one day we have a President Pence because Donald Trump is either impeached or voted out of office, we could have a President Pence. And that's almost scarier than what President Trump is putting our country through right now. And let's get right to that. Remember Mikey Flynn, the National Security Advisor, for like 20 days, and he was fired by the president, basically thrown under the bus because he got caught, kind of cavorting with foreign countries that don't like America much and that America shouldn't be agreeing with, but he was having like dinners and making $500,000 from the Turkish government. Yeah, that was a no-no, and he got caught. Well, we thought Mikey would probably just go quietly into that good night, but Mikey's not going to do that. No, see, Mikey has just asked for immunity from prosecution, and he has a story to tell. If he is immunized, because he don't want to go to jail. See, when you put jail in front of somebody, their loyalties to people like Donald Trump and others, Mike Bannon or Steve Bannon, yeah, they kind of dissipate when you're threatened with jail. A lot of these people who will take bribes or make money for foreign governments or commit treason, they'll do it, but they're not going to go to jail for it. And they're not going to go to jail for a Donald J. Trump. They're not doing that. So basically what Mike Flynn has done is, first of all, put himself in grave danger. And that brings us to the trail of the dead Russians. And there is a long trail of people who come up against Vladimir Putin and his reign as the leader of Russia. Anybody who threatens him and is credible at threatening him and gets the people's support, they become accident prone. They drop dead. And one actually dropped from a 4-story window. Now, whether he was dropped or pushed or fell accidentally, we don't know, but he survived. The interesting part is he fell from that 4-story window the day before he was going to testify against the Russian government, against Vladimir Putin in a Russian court. And this freak accident, he fell out of a 4-story window. Several people who threatened Vladimir Putin have been poisoned. That seems to be their weapon of choice over there in Russia. If you threaten the Putin administration, or whatever you want to call it, people get poisoned. That's their modus operandi. One guy was poisoned twice, 30-some years old, and he's been in the hospital twice from poisoning. because he is talking and speaking out against Vladimir Putin. The trail of the dead Russians. One Russian was gunned down in front of the Kremlin. Like right there. Here's his body. There's the Kremlin. And he was opposing Vladimir Putin, and he had a lot of support from the Russian people. And he was murdered. So Mikey Flynn right now is in an interesting situation. And I'll tell you, if I were a prosecutor able to grant Mikey Flynn immunity, I would be like, you have immunity, you have immunity, you have immunity. Now we need to get you to a safe location. We need to get you undercover very quickly, because people who have stories to tell about Vladimir Putin or any Russian connections to Vladimir Putin, they become accident prone. And we don't want Mikey Flynn to have an accident. We want to hear what he has to say. I, for one, can't wait. Can't wait. We got another little problem in the White House. Remember back when Trump said, when he was scaring everybody from voting for Hillary, oh, you know, if you vote for Hillary, she's going to be indicted for those emails. Her people are asking for immunity from prosecution. They must be guilty of something. Now, when Mikey Flynn is asking for immunity, Donald Trump tweets. That's how he communicates. He tweeted, well, of course he's going to ask for immunity. This is a witch hunt. Well, it wasn't a witch hunt when it was Hillary Clinton that was going to be prosecuted and indicted. Remember, he was going to lock her up. That if the American people voted for Hillary, that during her administration, she would spend more of her time answering indictments and subpoenas and testifying in court. Well, look what we have now with the Trump administration. His own son-in-law, good old Jared Kushner, is under subpoena right now. He's going to have to testify because guess what Jared did? Jared was at a dinner with Mikey Flynn and a representative of the Russian government when he shouldn't have been. And he's been subpoenaed to testify against his wife's daddy. How do you think that's going to work out? Think Jared's going to grab immunity? You think Jared is going to go to jail for his father-in-law? I don't know. Jail changes people. The threat of jail changes your loyalties a little bit. Wonder if Jared is willing to throw himself into a prison cell. Have his 4 Trump grandchildren, the Trump grandchildren, visit daddy in jail. Because grandpa threw Jared under the bus. And Jared is funny. He has this subpoena to testify, and you would think maybe they'd be pushing back his duties, putting him out of the spotlight. No, he got promoted. He has more duties now. He has more responsibility in the White House. Jared Kushner is now not only an advisor to the president, supposedly unpaid, but now he also is responsible for communications with foreign leaders in Israel, in Mexico. And added to that, he is now in charge of this Revitalization of America group, which makes him have his thumb on our internet structure, our electronics. Lots of stuff Jared Kushner is involved in, while under subpoena to testify that possibly he met with an agent of a foreign country who is not our friend. And remember why Hillary Clinton is not president today. Not because she didn't get the popular vote, she got the popular vote. But because the Russians were so terrified of a Clinton presidency, they were so scared because Hillary Clinton kisses no one's ass, including her husband's. And she wasn't going to kiss Vladimir Putin's ass, and he knew it. And it terrified him. Think about that. Think about all those leaks and all those things Trump said about, go for it, Russians. We love your leaks. Keep doing it. Find those emails. Let's lock her up. Wow. Now who might be getting locked up? National Security Advisor for 20 days who was fired because of a scandal. because he is a foreign agent for a foreign government. He worked for Turkey and made $500,000 doing it. And possibly the president's own son-in-law. And it gets better, because remember when President Trump during his campaign said, I know I'm new at this, I'm inexperienced, I'm going to surround myself with the best people. People who know, people who can advise me. Well, his newest hire is his daughter, Ivanka, who now gets an office upstairs right above her daddy, and she will be sworn in as a federal employee, unpaid, which again begs the question, how are the Kushner family supporting themselves in their big mansion in Washington, their kids in private schools? They had to divest themselves, supposedly, of all of their business dealings. How are they earning a living if they're not being paid when they're working for Daddy the President and Daddy-in-law the President? How are they paying their rent or their mortgage or the private school tuitions? And for the ski trips, yeah, last week, supposedly two of Donald Trump, the president's main supporters, during a big week in Washington when they were voting on health care, guess where Jared and Ivanka were? They were skiing. They went on a ski trip with their kids for spring break. If Hillary Clinton had done that, the Republicans would have lost their minds. If Hillary Clinton had given Chelsea an office right above hers and sworn her in as a federal employee and advisor to the president, the Republicans would have lost their minds. But Trump's getting away with it. He's getting away with it. I mean, what possibly could Ivanka Trump know about running a country? She runs a clothing line, and from what I hear, the clothing line not doing so well. Even before her dad became president, wasn't doing well. So, again, why is she now this senior advisor to the president? And what are they trying to do? Is there something that by making her a federal employee protects her from something that she might know, that she might have to say, but can say she doesn't have to say because she's the advisor to the president? I don't know. And you don't know. And the problem is we should know. And make no mistake, Russians spell America with a K. And I say we need to keep the C in America. Donald Trump promised us that if Hillary Clinton was elected, her administration would be swamped in scandal. And all that we have seen from President Trump so far is a travel ban against one religious group that is not cutting mustard, that has been stopped by many courts in many states. It's challenged. And a health care bill that even Republicans wouldn't pass. And you know what Donald Trump is now saying? The President of the United States is saying to his own party, if you don't start passing the things I want passed, I am going to go and campaign against you when you're up for re-election in your hometowns. I will campaign against you. I will make you lose your job if you don't start saying yes to the stuff I want done. Can you imagine? You have your Supreme Court Justice, this Gorsuch guy, who is stealing the seat because this seat belonged to President Obama. President Obama, when Justice Scalia died, President Obama was the President of the United States. And this happened 16 times in our history where a seat needed to be filled quickly, supposedly. And 15 times the president that was the president at the time, the Supreme Court Justice, either passed away or retired, named the successor. But they wouldn't let Obama do it. The Republicans fought him on Merrick Garland, who was a moderate. He was in the middle. He would have been a perfect Supreme Court justice. This Gorsuch dude, he and Mike Pence are like peas and carrots. Gorsuch will vote against, or I'm sorry, he will vote for a big corporation against a small guy, which he did in that frozen truck driver case. He will always side with big business. He will side with employers who wish to, because of what their preacher tells them on Sunday, stop their female employees from using legal birth control. They can refuse to put it on their insurance plan. He will side with them. The Hobby Lobbies and Chick-fil-A's and all those other religious right people who try to force their religion on their employees who may not share their religion. He will vote against marriage equality. If that is brought to his desk, he will vote to allow businesses to refuse to sell a wedding cake to a gay couple. This is what Gorsuch will do. And he's 49 years old, which means he could serve in the Supreme Court for the next 40, 50 years, depending how long he is lucky enough to live. Because he can't be fired. The only way a Supreme Court justice leaves the Supreme Court is in a box, because they're dead, or they retire. That's it. The only way they can be taken off the bench. So this is scary times. And the Republicans are so enamored with Neil Gorsuch because they want that Republican right-wing fanatical Christian dude on the bench that even if the Democrats filibuster and refuse to vote for him, the Republicans will go nuclear. And that's what it's called. It's called going nuclear. I couldn't believe it myself, but it's true. And that means the Republicans can basically say, we don't care if you Democrats vote for him. We're going to change the amount of votes he needs to get. And he's in. And he's in. It's done. So there you go. So this is what we're facing right now in Washington. And look, I'm not a fan of the Democrats. I don't like a lot of the Democratic viewpoints, especially on Medicaid and welfare and food stamps and how they want to give everything in the kitchen sink of my money away to people who don't earn it, who refuse to work even though they can. And I almost was for the Republicans with the health care bill because I liked the health care bill that Donald Trump put out. I did. I thought it was fair, more fair to people like myself who are self-insured. But this crap that's going on right now, especially what Mike Pence did yesterday, shitting on women who want to, for whatever reason they choose, not to become pregnant, not to be baby breeders, not to be a birthing oven for their men. And Mike Pence just, oh no. Planned Parenthood's done. Well, Planned Parenthood is not done. At least I hope not. Remember this, Planned Parenthood takes donations from private parties. You, me, anybody can donate to Planned Parenthood. And I hope that those of you, especially those of you who have young girls who are growing up right now, and those of you women out there who were able to get your birth control like I was from Planned Parenthood, were able to get cancer screenings from Planned Parenthood as I was when I was poor and couldn't afford the OBGYN outrageous charges for the same drugs and the same tests. I hope you will think of the choices you had and make sure that your daughters and your nieces, that they have the same choices by donating to Planned Parenthood if you can, and definitely fighting and supporting and voting for people who will allow Planned Parenthood and clinics like them to stay in business. Because this isn't just about Planned Parenthood. Any clinic in this country that even has a pamphlet in their building that mentions abortion is now no longer going to be funded by the federal government. And that's all because of Mike Pence, the vice president, who, depending on what happens with Donald Trump's implosion, he could be our president. He could be our president by the fall if things keep going the way they're going with Donald Trump. So we'll have to wait and see on that. In the meantime, you have to stay vigilant, you have to stay informed, and you have to make sure that the next time you get into a voting booth, you vote with this. You really use your brain and know what the hell you're voting for. And when you find out that a foreign government interfered with your election, you vote for the other person. Because if the Russians like somebody, they want somebody to be president of our country, that's a bad thing. We don't want to make the Russians happy. We don't want them to like our president. We want them to fear our president, to respect our president. And I don't think they do either with Donald Trump. They think he's their puppet. And he very well may be. And when Mikey Flynn gets his immunity agreement, and he starts talking. And when Jared Kushner is under oath in front of the Senate committee, we'll see. We'll see where the chips fall, and who gets thrown under the bus, and who's willing to go to jail rather than talk. We'll also see who claims their Fifth Amendment privilege, which is another thing that Trump criticized Hillary's people for. They claimed the Fifth. We'll see how many people want to claim the Fifth in Trump's administration when they are forced to testify before Congress. And then again, as I always tell you, you have to decide for yourself how big of a mistake voting for Trump was, especially since his big thing, repeal and replace Obamacare, has been a huge fail. You didn't get what you wanted when you voted for him. But God help us what we might have gotten because you voted for him. Keep the C in America, please. Democrats, Republicans, right now we are all Americans, and we are fighting for our existence as Americans, and especially us women. Keep the C in America. Political Paula, out.